This, my friends, is why I love investing in real estate. So I went through my numbers after having, the first 5 or so properties. The bottom line was I wasn't making money, right? I was losing money. Just to round out my story, I was at minus $47,000 in my net worth when I got divorced. In 3 years, I was over $1 million. Every time that I make a mistake, I learn from it. Learn and apply. Learn and apply. Because I knew that saving for our future is so much different than investing for our future. When we save money, you have a lot of people with 401ks, right? But what are they always afraid of? Spending it, living. So that's why I know how important it is. Savings dwindle until it's gone, investments grow, and provide a legacy. All right. Thank you very much for showing up today. My name is Lenore Mohr. I'm happy to be here. I'm going to be talking about what I created a couple of years ago, and that's about how to work with investors and investment properties and to learn how to be an investor yourself. So we're going to go residential sales versus investment sales. What's the difference? What's the main difference between a residential sale and an investment sale? What is the one thing that you guys think of? Right? I have it right there on the screen.
When they make investment is like you sell it for rental or make profit out of it.
Correct, right? But also your investors are repeat clients. This is the most important thing that I want you to take away today. So is my database giant or is it a little bit smaller? My A-list clients, sure, it got a big database of people, but really what I focus on is a smaller database and I get to know my investors on a much more intimate level, right? So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk a little bit about like what their goals are. We're going to make sure we understand their goals. We're going to make sure we understand what they're doing for the long-term health of their family, what's important to them. These are all the things we talk to about investors. So they're also looking for realtors. Investors are looking for realtors who are confident in themselves and working with investment properties. And that's why I wanted to teach this today so that I can build that confidence and make sure that when you guys are like, yes, I know what I'm doing, right? So we're going to go through a lot of information. Education, hugely important. I've spent, I think, $180,000 on my education over the last 5 years from different coaches, resources, courses, you name it. I've done weekend seminars from sales and negotiation training to intensive coaching on how to work with investment properties. So it's very important that you always have an educational system and background and some tools. I always love this book. I don't care. How many people here read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Yes. Okay, we've got, yes? All right. I have read it maybe 3 or 4 times. I listen to it in my car. I have a couple of Kiyosaki's follow-up books. Why do we listen to a book more than once?
There's things you miss. There are always things you miss. And you're in a different place. You hear things differently when you're in a different place.
I love that. So you hear things differently. There's things that you miss because we've grown to another level. So our body and our mind can only assimilate information that we're looking for. So if we set up our mind to say, hey, I want to work with investment properties, I want to work with investors, all of a sudden somebody's talking to you. Hey, anybody who works with investors, it just happens. We set up our mind to hear conversations, to be in a room, and it starts to attract it because everything for us is magnetic. Okay, so you want to take a course, hire a coach, go on to Bigger Pockets. Anybody hear of Bigger Pockets? Go on to Bigger Pockets. I know you've been there, right? Bigger Pockets. So that's things you want to write down. Definitely be on Bigger Pockets. So it's life before real estate for me. I was in the film and television business for years. So I was also in advertising. Everything that I worked around had numbers, budgets, money, and a creative piece. So numbers, money, budgets, project management, being a producer, all of this ties together into real estate. My dad was an architect. It's something I've always loved. I renovated my first house back in 2002. And it was just because I was having a baby and it was one of those things where I started a nest and I'm like, I really want to have this house. And then you skip to 2016 is when I actually launched the first company that I did as renovation, which is Pure Light Property. Oops. This is a little bit more sensitive than I'll use this instead. Great. So how it all started. Look at the house on the left. That's a ranch that I bought back in, I think that was 2017. Bought this ranch. and turned it into a 2-story colonial. So this was our most ambitious renovation that we'd ever done. And it is my fifth, I believe it was my fifth or sixth renovation to date. I've done about 40 renovations. And it's every renovation I learn something new, but then you start to get a system down, right? You start to understand we're using this kitchen, we're using this bathroom, we've done this before, we've seen this problem before, we know how to fix this. You bring in crews of people who's been working with you for a while. Everybody starts to get into a rhythm. That's really what we started to create when we had started Pure Light Properties. Where do I focus my time? Kitchens and bathrooms. Who buys properties? Who buys the house? The man or the woman?
Woman usually.
The woman, right? She walks into the kitchen. She's like, nope, not happening, right? So we focused a lot of time on kitchens, on bathrooms. We wanted to make sure that things were functional. So sometimes a contractor would be looking at me and say, you're overthinking this kitchen. Really? I'm going to take my roast out of my refrigerator. Where am I going to set it? You didn't give me any counter space. The way we designed this kitchen doesn't work for me. I'm going to set it here, and then I'm going to turn around to my sink, and then I'm going to turn around to my stove. I'm going to hand this out to my family. So everything that we designed was set up so that it was functional and it worked. How about when you go to reach for a cabinet and the cabinet hits something else, or you can't reach the cabinet because you're over a counter? These are the things that you want to think through when it comes to the kitchens and the bathrooms.
In order for that, who do you ask that? Do you hire someone, a designer, architect, or?
Great question. So I've redesigned all my layouts myself. And did I go to formal schooling for that? No. But here's what I do. The biggest trick that I've learned in my business is when you bring in people, when you bring in contractors. I had a designer, my cousin Christy, would come in and help with all the finishes. She would pull together lighting. She would figure out what the color scheme is, tiles. What are we doing here in this room, in this house? So when you walk in, it feels cohesive. She was key, right, for helping me in my development. But every contractor, every plumber, every electrician, I'm like, hey, what do you think of this kitchen? And somebody would give me a new idea. And so I would ask everybody, and I walk that kitchen, try to figure out the functionality of it, and then start putting it on paper. Now in Jersey, this was in New Jersey, I actually had to submit formal architectural designs. And it was the first time that I brought in, actually it's this one. This was a Dutch colonial that we had done, that we had redesigned on the inside and the outside. This was another big one that was down the street from the two-story colonial we created. And the architect gave me so many different ideas because things that I knew that I wanted to do, but the architect put it on plans and I'm like, that's it. I wiped out the whole second floor and we redesigned the whole second floor on this one. I think that's one of the bathrooms that we had done. So it's like, how do you take a space and then turn it into something more functional? You can open up walls. I can move plumbing, right? We try not to move plumbing as much. You have a drain line. It's much easier to put that bathroom in there than it is to move it, but I can switch those drain lines. Those are drain lines. So those are things that we always looked at. So if you look at this bathroom, for example, it's just not, for me, functionally set up. When I walk into a bathroom, I want to be at my vanity, right? And then I want my toilet and my shower off to the back. So we redesigned this kitchen, and you can see the bathroom was up front, toes to the left. It just redesigned it so it was more friendly for all the users and the people in the house that were coming into the house. Like, these are the little things that you can do and still not spend a ton of money. I didn't move any walls. As you can see, we kind of expanded things, but I also tapped into the master bathroom on the other side. And I said, no, we're going to put the master bathroom against this wall because all the plumbing's there. So you want to think about how to do that when you're designing your properties. This one I love. Now, this is the Dutch colonial. If you notice, there is not anything that I redid to this room except for floors, resanded and refinished the floors, paint, lighting. We kept the original windows. So this is what you can do with just an imagination of how can I create this space? So we're brightening it up. So we're making it something different. So when you walk in, I want everybody who walks into one of these houses to go, wow, and not even know why they're saying wow or why they're feeling the way they're feeling. I redesigned the whole space. I wish I had the kitchen on this one. On the other side, I moved a door for the bathroom. There was a door to the cellar. I'm like, nope, we're going to move it over here. And it wasn't big moves, but those little moves made it much more functional. And again, did I walk that kitchen over and over again? Yes. So, what I wanted to talk about here is, if you see at the bottom, in my early years, made some money, lost some money, learned some lessons, and learned a lot of lessons, learned a lot about myself, right? And the things that I had to bump up against. I had to learn how to work with contractors and how to make sure that I was lifting them up, but also holding the line of, nope, that's not going to work. That's not how we're going to do that today. A lot of people ask me about contractors, just a real quick aside. So when a contractor comes to me and he says, oh yeah, it's going to cost this much money, for this project. And I walk them through, okay, well, let's look at the materials you're buying. So let's talk about a powder room. You're buying a toilet, you're buying a sink, you're redoing the floors. How many guys? 2 guys. How long is it going to take you? It's going to take us about a week. Great. So the number you've given me and I know the materials are going to cost me $2,000, and you're charging me $18,000 or $20,000 for that bathroom, and there's only 2 guys, so you're paying your guys $10,000 a week. I'm like, can I be on your team? Like I always laugh about it. Can I be on your team? Because man, you're crushing it, right? You're crushing it with this. And so I would always joke about it, but I'd also say to them, because a lot of contractors say, give me a 50% up front. I learned the hard way. No. The way I work with a contractor is I look at them and I say, okay, so you'd like a deposit, right, for the materials. You'd like money up front. Yes, that's correct. And so let's talk about how that works. So your guys come in on a Monday, and then they work all week. Do you pay them on Monday or Friday? Well, I pay them on Friday, of course. I want to get that full week's work out of them. Right, because you're a smart businessman. I'm a smart business person too. So I'm going to pay you on a milestone payment. When you complete that milestone, that's when I'm going to pay you. Because, right, I'm not going to pay you up front because that doesn't make any sense. You don't pay your guys up front. Right. And so we just want to be smart when we're looking at how we set up milestone payments, how we set up the different things that we do with contractors in order for them to be successful. And a lot of contractors, I help them with systems. I'm a systems and process person, right? So I'm going to say to those contractors, why are you going to Home Depot 10 times? Right? Let's look at our whole week on a Friday. Let's order everything we need for Monday. Let's have it dropped off by Home Depot, because if you have a big enough order, they'll drop it off for free. And the guys are running, and we have a schedule. And I'd go around the house and I'd put up signs all over what the paint color was, what the scope of work was. In every room, I'd put up a scope of work, because these guys have different guys coming in. So when I walk in and went, the room's the wrong color, right? It's because they weren't communicating to their guys. But if I have a thing on the wall, they all walk over and look at it. Make sense? Right? So that's just some ways that you can really help to streamline the process, because your idea is to get in and get out. Now, made some money, lost some money. What's the bottom line of every business? As a realtor, what's our bottom line? Numbers. And what do we want to make?
All agree.
Yeah, nice. We want to make profit. So I went through my numbers after having, the first 5 or so properties, and I had private lenders on them. I had some hard money lending. I'm going to go into that very briefly, but that's a whole discussion in itself. But when I looked at it, the bottom line was I wasn't making money, right? I was losing money. I paid back all my lenders first, and then what I had left was like, oh my gosh, right? Like I'm behind the 8 ball. So I had a choice. When we lost money in New Jersey, I was like, okay. I remember laying in my bed with the covers up over my head, crying and going, what have I done? And then I'm like, what are you going to do about it? I remember talking to myself, literally standing up outside of my bed and saying, what are you going to do about it? I'm going to become a realtor. Because I had to analyze what went wrong. There were a couple things that went wrong. Having a strong realtor up front, helping me and guiding me to doing certain renovations, timelines, getting everything in that pipeline, figuring it all out with me as a team, as a partner, became a huge deal. So I wanted that information. I wanted that education. I wanted to be empowered. So I became a realtor. And so I was at this business decision point, and I said to myself, what's the definition of failure, right? You can only fail if you what? I want to hear it again. You can only fail if you what? If you quit, that's the only way you can fail. Every time that I make a mistake, I learn from it. Learn and apply. Learn and apply. I've done a lot of learning and applying over the last 6, 7, 8 years. Where am I at? A lot of it. And each time I came to a decision point of what I needed to do for my business and how I was going to take care of it. So I also had this conversation with myself, because I know that what I focus on expands. So what do I want to focus on? The things that didn't work or the things that were working?
Working. None of that was working.
Thank you very much. Because when I focus on the things that were working, all of a sudden it gave me this momentum and this energy to continue. And so I realized that, there's a saying that I love. It's a Tony Robbins saying, right? How is life working for me and not happening to me? Just sit with that for a second. Situation happens. What's the first thing you say? Oh my God, why is this happening to me? How many here have said that? Why is this happening to me? Shift that language from why is this happening to me? There you go. Waken the giant within. Tony Robbins. I love it. Roberto, you're going to come up here and teach these classes. So when I switched my focus from how is life working for me, everything became a learning lesson. I started writing everything down. What did you learn? What did you learn when you took this course and it wasn't the right course of action. It was something that took you into a place of failure. What are you going to learn from that? I need a system here. I need to talk to contractors differently. I can't give them money up front. I have to check on them. I can't just leave them alone, right? They'll do whatever they want. I'm like, oh my God, I walk in there, the walls are the wrong color. How do I change that so it's all working for me? So when I realized the necessity is the mother of invention, and I needed to be a realtor, and that investors needed realtors who knew what they were talking about, what was born was the investment realtor. So people would say to me, are you a residential realtor? No. Are you a commercial realtor? No. And they'd just look at me. There are no other realtors. I'm like, really? I'm an investment realtor. And so I created this term. I called myself the original investment realtor. And I started looking at how can I create this situation for other people also. And as you'll see, a couple things came about. And the reason I put this slide up here is because I gutted my first house in 2002, right? Not knowing what I was doing, and redesigned the whole thing. I was 7 months pregnant. In 2016, I launched Pure Light Properties. In 2017, I became a licensed realtor because of a failure point. That decision changed my whole life, my whole path, my whole career path. And I joined Keller Williams in late 2018. And I focused on a team of realtors and investors in investment properties. Everybody said I was crazy. You can't do that. You're not going to make it. Just be a residential realtor, be a commercial realtor, pick one. I'm like, no, I've seen it. I know that there's a niche for this. And so in early 2021, I got a divorce. Everything changed. All that debt that I had in the company, I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I said, I'll take on all the debt in the divorce. I just want these 4 little properties that I had purchased as my first rental properties. And I had did all the work and all the legwork. They weren't cash flowing. And I looked at my bottom line and I was minus $47,000 as my net worth. When I split up all the assets, when I split up my net worth, and I have sheets. I have a sheet that I run every Sunday and it shows my net worth. It runs all my assets, all my liabilities, and shows me what I'm worth. And my goal was that day, I was like, I'm going to hit $1 million in net worth. I joined and I started just intensely mindset. So I'll get into that in a second, but I just want you to know we overestimate what we can do in a year and we underestimate what we can do in a decade. Completely. I am at 2016. I haven't hit 2026 yet. But I've gone through this whole iteration of so many different things that I now have a skill set for that I should be able to handle pretty much everything. And I've been challenged this year moving to Florida, let me tell you. So I have to go back to my tool set again and again. Quick thing, what is an investment realtor? So I came up with a personal mission statement because I realized about what lit me up was talking to people like you. I realized what lit me up was like educating and helping people to create a life that was going to change their lives and their family's life and their legacy forever. And I thought, this is the most cool job in the entire world. And so that's where I came up with this idea of I really wanted to focus on it because I knew that saving for our future is so much different than investing for our future. When we save money, you have a lot of people with 401ks, right? So they save this pot of money. Congratulations, it's amazing. But what are they always afraid of? Spending it, living. They're afraid of spending, living, right? So I see people that they get older and older and they spend less and less and less. Are they truly living? Because they're afraid they're going to run out of money before they die. Investing money is so much different because it's there. You invest that principal and you just you live off of what you're kicking off of. So that's why I know how important it is. Savings dwindle until it's gone, investments grow, and provide a legacy. And so I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. Excuse me. So you have to figure out what your current mindset is. In order to work with investments, an investment realtor, or work with your own, you want to figure out what your current mindset is. You want to know the language that investors use. You want to know the difference between what we talked about, what a residential listing and investment listing looks like, how you structure that. You want to know what to look for when you're walking an investment property. Investors buy multiple properties and they need a master plan. So what is that master plan? How do you help them with that master plan? And working with investors is my favorite thing ever. It's a circle of learning. So when I am working with an investor and they're making an offer on something and they say, my one investor, she's like, oh, we're gonna actually structure this in a way that I've never even seen before. I'm like, God, that's brilliant. So what do? I learn from her. I teach it back to you guys. I teach it back to my investors and I apply it to my own. So it creates this beautiful circle of learning. And that's what I love about working with investors. So why do we start with mindset? Why? My favorite thing in the entire world. I was just asked to teach a class on mindset and I'm really excited about it because I couldn't change anything in my future until I changed my mindset. That day when I was laying in my bed, that day when I said stand up, all I did was focus on mindset. And I realized that with a minus $47,000 net worth, that in order to hit my goal, I needed to change my mindset. And so our mind creates who we are every 1/100,000th of a second. Think about that. It's like faster than me snapping my finger. You get to choose who you are. But unfortunately, we get very narrow in our focus. I'm a mother. I'm an investment realtor. I live in Palm Beach. I work at KW. Like when I wake up in the morning, my whole life gets laid out in front of me. What if in that moment that you woke up in the morning, you got to choose something else, something different? Is it possible?
True.
It is possible. You know how I know it's possible?
You've done it.
I did it. Who I was no longer exists. I built this person. And I'd still like to build a much better version of myself. Every day I'm trying to, and I still come up against challenges and things that I'm like, oh my God, really? I'm still going through this? Yeah, but I have tools and things get resolved quicker, right? So if you can recreate yourself, do you see an opportunity for yourselves? And if you can choose that and you see that life, I have something called a vision board, which I call it a reality board because it's not a vision, it's my reality. It's up in my closet and I look at it every day and I say, this is this year, this is the next 3 years, this is where I'm going. And my mind is constantly working on that. I might not know how to get there yet. I don't have to know the how. I just have to know the feeling that I am going to get there. And so that's why mindset is so important. Love that part. I'm going to go through some of these and you're going to be like, this is a lot of information. So this is very, very typical, very standard. What's a flip, a buy and hold, and a commercial property? What's the difference? I think we all know that. Flips, you have to look for a different margin. Buy and holds, you can have a less margin because you're holding on to that property. You're going to be cash flowing. And a commercial property, anything outside of that where it's a Walmart or even a gas station or a car wash or laundromat, those are all great properties to own. So what I kind of came up with are these are the types of investors that I've determined. The laptop investor. I would get a call from these guys, right? It's usually guys. And this one guy, Tom, I'm going to use him as an example. He worked on the top of the tallest buildings in New York City. He was like a welder, right? So he'd be sitting up high over the city making a boatload of money. And then all he did at night on his laptop was go on Bigger Pockets, learn about investing. How do I take my money? How do I build momentum? He had all this knowledge and drive to create something for himself. And he needed somebody like me to guide him of what to do with that investment, to what to do with those funds, how to create momentum with that funds. So I called them the laptop investors. I got a lot of calls from people, hey, I saw you on Bigger Pockets, or I heard about you from Bigger Pockets. I'm like, I have no idea who's talking about me on Bigger Pockets. But they were usually these guys. That's all they did was just figure out how to invest their money. Then we've got the house hacker. Who knows what a house hacker is?
Is there somebody on like a duplex?
That where it's so duplex is a great example. You buy a duplex, you live in half, you live on one side, and you rent the other side. And who pays your mortgage? Not right, your tenants. Your tenants. And what can you also do? You can renovate that side you're living in, right? You're a little uncomfortable. Who cares, right? Renovate that side. Now you might need the other side renovated. That person moves out. You move into that one. You renovate that one, and you get to rent the other one for more what?
Money.
Much more money. So you've renovated. Now you have an asset. Now you can move out of that asset. You can rent both sides out and go buy another one. Go buy a triplex. Go buy a four unit, right? You can do that too. So that's a house hacker. Don't kill your chickens. I have a friend, Julie Gates, down in Savannah, Georgia, who's always said, Lenore, don't kill your chickens. What she means by that is she never sells a property. So when she buys a property, she just continues to buy more. I have another friend who does the same thing, and it's amazing. They've amassed, when I met them, they had a $33 million real estate portfolio. It's now at almost $400 million in 4 years. So that's don't kill your chickens. Buy low, sell high. This is another strategy that we all know, buy that property low, put some equity, some value into it, and then sell high. Language of investment. It's all about the numbers for the investor. It's all it is, right? So it's in residential real estate, it's an emotional decision. Oh, my grandmother owned this house. She designed those kitchen cabinets from the 1950s. And you're like, okay, right? The investor's like, I don't care about those kitchen cabinets. Will somebody rent it with those kitchen cabinets? Yeah, they'll probably rent it with those kitchen cabinets. Great, let's go. It's not emotional. It's about the numbers, right? The only time that an investor gets emotional is when they lose
Money.
That's when they get emotional. So you want to make sure that you understand that. So, and it's a point that I would say is it's important to guide an investor. You never want them coming back and saying, but you told me to buy that. No, I know I'm advising you. I teach them how to run their own numbers. I teach them how to walk a property. I'm teaching them all this because they call me up and go, hey, did you see that property on 1419, Chew Street? Oh my God, it looks so great. Did you run your numbers? Yeah. Did you do a global view? Did you do this? Did you do that? Yeah. Great. What do you want to do? Can you just walk through really quickly? I don't even need to be there. Just take some video. Great. Put in an offer that night and we're done. That's how I like to do things. So that's what you can do as investors. Get better at what they're doing. I'm educating them. They're educating me. I'm blasting that out to everybody else. Okay. You ready? Everybody take a deep breath. Okay? So I want you to say, I love numbers and numbers love me. I love numbers and numbers love me. We're all realtors. We have to work with numbers. It's what we do. Whether we're a math person or not, we're going to go into a couple of numbers, right? What is a cap rate? A capitalization rate is really the number that I use the most, but I have investors who come to me and I ask them, and I'll go through a buyer intake form. So I ask them, are you interested in cap rate, cash on cash return? Are you interested in cash flow? Like, what's your interest? And trust me, they usually know. If they don't, you know that you're going to get to help guide them to figure out what these terms are, right? So return on investment, rent rolls. A rent roll is basically all the numbers of everything that's going on in that property is a rent roll. So you look at all the units that you have and what the income and expenses are. If that person's paying, have they paid on time? Really what you're looking for is consistency of payments. Cash versus mortgage. We all know how this goes. Right? I always try to get my investors to purchase with cash and then refinance. Can an investor use an FHA loan?
Yes, it is a first purchase.
Anybody else?
Was it have to qualify for an FG?
Sure, you have to qualify. First-time home buyer, you can use an FHA loan. Now, I've heard of people using FHA loans here, right? If they're not a first home. Thank you. But an FHA loan, absolutely. You can use an FHA loan. You have to live on the property, and your numbers have to be super strong to make sure that the rent pays for the mortgage. The bank runs all the numbers and says, yep, you qualify. What do you turn into?
House hacker.
House hacker. Turn into a house hacker, right? With a 3% down, right? Think about this. 3% down, tenants are paying your mortgage. Is this a good strategy?
Yeah. Absolutely. Then use the other side as a source of income as well.
Exactly. You're using it. You can get some cash flow money for maybe put some cash in your pocket, and you can be renovating and watching what's going on with your investment. Love that.
Are you even the property for the duration of the
You live on the property, you don't have to live for the duration.
Is that 1 year or you don't?
I think it's a year. Depends, you have to look at the lender, but I think it's a year. So think about that. What an opportunity. Buy one, a year later, buy another one. You know, I mean, that's, you know, it's a great opportunity. We've got hard money lending, and if you know what hard money lending is,
Yeah.
okay, versus wholesaling. You know what a wholesaler is? It's basically somebody who's flipping paper. A wholesaler, all they're doing is flipping paper. I put it under contract. I sell you that contract. I put $10,000 fee at the closing table, and you get a property. I get $10,000. I never actually buy the property as a wholesaler. I'm just flipping the paper. Make sense? Okay. We're going to go through some of these pretty quickly because I want to get into it. So know your numbers. My big saying, I want to have hats, pens, t-shirts. If the numbers work, buy it. If the numbers work, buy it. Does real estate tend to go up or down?
Up.
Over time, do we have dips? Do you sell during a dip?
No.
No.
Well,
You buy during a dip. Very good, Roberto. I want you to understand cash flow is very simple, right? It sounds difficult, but it's not. So we're just basically taking our income, which is our rent, minus our expenses, our mortgage, utility, taxes, and insurance. What's left is your cash flow. So let's say you have $400 a month. In this example I've done, you've got $5,000 minus $4,600 equals $400 a month as your cash flow. Does that sound like a lot of money?
no.
Doesn't sound like a lot of money. Let's say you had 10 of those. Is that a little bit better?
Yeah.
Let's say at the end of that year, what are you going to do with your rents?
Increasing.
Increase them. Let's say you had 10. You increase all 10 rents. Are you still cash flowing at $400 per property?
No.
No. We're going to go into that slide in a minute. So we've talked a little bit about cap rate, but so the cap rate, in order for you to understand how to do cap rate, net operating annual income, right? NOI, net operating income, is basically all those expenses we just talked about without the mortgage. Why without the mortgage? Because not everybody has a mortgage, right? Some people buy with cash. So you take your net operating income, or NOI, and you divide it by the purchase price. So in this example, $30,000 is, so if you have $30,000 a year that you're making in cash flow, and you divide it by $500,000, your purchase price, that's a 6 cap. So it's a 6% capitalization rate. The cap rate is what a lot of people talk about. You'll see the marketing remarks. Oh, it's an 8 cap. Oh, it's a 6 cap. Here in Florida, it's lower. I said 6. I'm up in Pennsylvania. That's where I own most of my properties to this day. That I can usually get a 9 or a 10 cap up there, right? That gets pretty amazing. So that's why there's different investors across the country. That's why it's important for you to be able to know how to do this, because you might want to invest in a different part of the country. You might have family there. You might have grown up somewhere else. And you're like, you know what? I could buy a house there. I've got my family there, right? There's different opportunities that you can buy in different areas. Cash on cash return. The best way I can describe this is if you have $50,000 and you've invested that $50,000 into the stock market and you get a 10% return, right? So you know how much you're getting for that year, right? So I think I have it in here. So if a 10% return, you get what? What's at the end of that year? A 10%. $50,000, $5,000, right? So if you take that same $50,000 and you put it into a rental, right? You invest into a buy and hold property, and you invest that $50,000 as your down money into a rental. And then you have your annual cash flow, which is $48,000, divided by that down money, that times 100. So basically, you're coming up with the same percentage. You're at 9.6%. So you're taking the same $50,000, putting in the stock market, getting $5,000 at the end of the year, taking that same $50,000, putting it into real estate, and you get 9.6%. You're like, Lenore, it's lower. Yeah, it is lower. Let's look at something else. So you've got a $50,000 investment in stocks, and this is a growth chart of 10% every year, right? You have compounded interest. You could keep that money in there. It's a little bit different curve, but it's still something that you can compare it to. You'd have $80,000 in 10 years in this example. If you kept it in there, right, you would have compounded interest. If you're pulling it out, you actually would have that $80,000 that you could pull out $5,000 every year. So can you put your $5,000 earnings in your pocket with the stock market? You can. Do you get taxed on that?
That's yeah, you will.
Yes, you do. You get capital gains tax. Can you change the company that you've invested in? Can you call up the CEO? Hey, dude, you know what? You really shouldn't be, watching your bottom line. I see your balance sheet is this and your profit and loss is this. Can you make these changes? Because I think our stock will go up. Can you do that?
Yes.
I love your attitude, Laura. Laura's like, yeah, I can totally go to CEO. Let's go. CEO Laura. Can you write off your earnings?
Right.
At the stock market, can you write off your earnings? So that $5,000, can you write off? Okay.
Depends on what you have in losses.
Okay. All right. I like that answer. So, do you have somebody paying off your investment? You see where I'm going with this, right? So let's go to the other side.
A lot of no's now.
A lot of no's. So let's say this is a 10-year review of what you can buy in real estate. So if you'll see when you purchase a property, does your equity grow in that property, right? So you have a mortgage, right? Does your mortgage go down?
Oh. Yes.
Yes.
What do you mean the mortgage goes down?
You're paying it off.
Oh, you mean the amount?
The amount.
It's a monthly payment.
So you start out with this mortgage payment and you owe the bank this amount of money and your mortgage gets paid down over time. Us paying a mortgage.
You've done it.
You're not even paying a mortgage, right? So your equity's going up. Your mortgage payments are getting paid down over time. And at the bottom, I have a cash flow line. And you're putting money in your pocket. So look at that gap. That gap between that top line and that second line, that's the amount of equity. And guess what? When that loan is paid off, do you put even more money in your pocket?
Yes.
So there's a concept where you can actually take, say you buy one property, right? And you say, okay, I've got cash flow of $400 a month. And then you're going along, you're like, I'm going to buy some more. What's the magic number when it comes to properties in real estate? How many properties does it feel like, okay, now I've kind of maxed out and I'm okay. Not maxed out, but I've hit this point. The magic number is 10, right? So you have all these properties, you have 10 properties. What if you took all the cash flow from all these properties and you drove it into the principal of that mortgage? Okay. All of it. Because the one thing that I learned, and I made this mistake this year, I always call myself out, but I had to. I had a kid in college. I took the money that was earning out of my properties and I started using it because I was using it to pay for her college. That's a side note. Don't let me forget to show you that. So, but if you drive it all in here, if you keep the money that you're earning out of cash flow and you use it to either reinvest it or drive it into the mortgage to pay down the principal of another property, it's insane what happens. When you look at the long-term growth, you have a scale like this and you are hockey sticking everything that's going on in your life. Your money's coming in, and guess what? Can you put that $4,800 earning in your pocket?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, and yes. Or can you keep it and drive it back in or reinvest it? Can you change the real estate that you've invested in to increase the productivity?
Yeah, you can.
Of course you can. Oh, you know what? Why don't we have these utilities paid by the tenants? How much more money is that going to put in my pocket? Hey, you know what? I'm going to allow them to have pets. I'm going to charge them $50 a month. I'm just going to put more money into my pocket. Hey, I'm going to renovate that house because I know that I saw across the street, we can double our rent if we renovate that house. I can't change the CEO of the stock I've invested in, but I can sure as heck have control over my own properties. Okay? So I can also write off my earnings because I have a real estate asset. You have to have a good accountant. You have to know how to write off your earnings. But the first year that I was really cranking along, so just to round out my story, I was at minus $47,000 in my net worth when I got divorced. In 3 years, I was over $1 million in net worth.
That's all says.
And,
Congratulations.
and that was from buying 11 properties in 2021. That was increasing my financial intelligence. I joined groups. I listened to podcasts. I did everything. I changed my mindset. I had to in order to do that. So it was really important for me to understand how this all worked because I still struggle today, right? When I'm like, okay, now I've hit this $1 million goal. Now I don't have another goal. I need another big goal. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So I use that $4,000 a month. So right now I'm like cash flowing maybe $8,000 a month. So we're just going to do a quick college example because when I saw this, when I first took my first financial mastery course with Bob Wells, and when I took this class, I was like, oh my God, I've done this all wrong. So what happens is when we're saving for college, right? And let's say we want to hit a $200,000 goal to save for college. And we have, let's say, 20 years to do it, right? So if you are buying or you're investing into what's the savings plan in Florida you invest in college? It's like Florida prepaid or okay. There's a couple different things. Like in Pennsylvania, there's a 529, right? So you have the 529. So you're like, saving all this money, right? And you hit your goal. And you're doing the same thing in real estate, but you're saving it takes a little bit longer because you're cash flow. And then all of a sudden you start seeing more cash flow coming in. This is happening. So you want a monthly amount, right? So if you saved all this money and let's say you have this block and you have $200,000 in here to save for college. And so the first year, this whole block is grayed out, right? So that first year you spend this chunk of money. Is it gone? Second year, this chunk of money. Is it gone? Third year, this chunk of money. Is it gone? Yes. Fourth year. How much do you have left of your $200,000 that you save for your kid's college?
Not much.
Nothing. So if I start rental assets, right, and I start having, let's say, $400 20 years ago, and now all of a sudden it's $10,000 a month. When I have my principal and I pay off my, let's say, $50,000 the first year because I saved that money, I either saved it or $50,000 divided by 12 is how much a month? Who's my mathematician? Sorry, what's that? All right. So am I making that in my rentals right now? 4,000 a month, 5,000 a month. I'm making like 8, right? So what I did is I had a very short window to save for college because I didn't have any savings for college because I had spent it all because I invested it back into my business. So what I did is as my daughter was then going to college, so if you remember, it was back in 2021, I took that money and I saved all that year. I paid off that one, I paid off her expenses for the month, and everything got paid off. So at the end, do I still have my $200,000 as my principal? I paid all of college, my 4 years of my kids' college, all from the rental income that got kicked out.
Nice.
So this principle stayed intact. This, my friends, is why I love investing in real estate. And that's how I did it. Okay. Investor intake form. So when I talk to somebody on the phone, I have another class that I just taught called How to Write an Offer That Wins. And that takes you a little bit more in depth about how to work with the buyer and what to say to the buyer, what to the questions to ask. I'm going to give away this form in a minute that you can take a QR code and actually download it. But I ask them all these questions. So I say, hey, what's your background and why are you investing in this area? Do you currently own investment properties? What types of properties you're interested in? I didn't ask this question. Does anybody here own investment properties?
Yes.
Hands held high. Be proud of this. This is amazing. I know you and I, Jesse and I, about this. So you're crushing it, by the way. And so this is how I go through my process when I get somebody who's referred to me or I know somebody's going to do it. I go through this investor intake form first. This is the first thing I do. Because after this phone call, what do I say to them? I'd love to set you up on an MLS strip campaign, but I'm going to send you the buyer contracts because you want me to be committed to you, right? Yeah. And I'm shaking my head. In order for us to be committed, I also taught sales and negotiation strategy last week, and that's what I did. Because you want to be committed to me, and I want to be committed to you. I want to work really hard for you. So let's get these contracts out of the way. I'm going to send you these contracts. We're going to get that done, and then I'm going to set up your MLS strip campaign. By asking them these questions, do you think that they think I know what I'm doing?
Of course.
If you have these questions in front of you, do you think that they're going to know what you're doing?
Yeah.
I also want to unpack this. Like I'm going to have another follow-up where I'll actually go through this form of why I ask these questions and how it helps that whole relationship. All right. So what do we have to do when it comes to work in investment properties? We have to identify the roadblocks. What's the biggest roadblock to selling an investment property? Biggest roadblock?
Finding a property?
No.
Location.
No.
The biggest rules of selling your property?
Yes.
It's like after you acquired in
So you're the listing and you're on the listing side. Sorry. You're on the listing side. You come to somebody and you're like, okay, they were like, we want you to sell our investment property. What's the biggest roadblock you're going to have to selling that investment property?
The dollar amount.
The tenants.
Oh. Buying them out.
The tenants are always the biggest roadblock to selling an investment property. Here's why. Have you ever, so tenants never want to leave when you have an open house, by the way. And do I do an open house? And people are like, you do an open house for a multi-unit? Absolutely. I get everybody on board. Hey, I don't want to bother you. So on this Saturday between 2 and 4, I'm going to have people coming through, and I set up and I market that property. So I have investors from all over coming through. Do they ever want to leave?
Nope.
Nope. They think somebody's going to steal their stuff. Happens all the time. I need to be here. I'm cool with you being here, but I'm walking through with them because what do tenants say?
Too much.
Oh, you know, that this is a problem and this is a problem. Biggest roadblock to selling investment property with the tenants. So I have a tenant information sheet. I have a tenant information letter. I do an intro letter. I drop it into every mailbox. If it's like a 6 unit, I drop it all in there with my card. Here's the process. Here's what's going to happen. I'm taking care of you just as much as I'm taking care of my seller. I want to make sure that I've created a situation where I've bonded with them so that they're going to be, when I pick up the phone and go, I'm so sorry, that person's got to come through your house again. Do you really mind? I'm so sorry. They're like, no, Lenore, it's okay. Because they like me. They don't like me, I'm dead in the water.
Oh, yeah.
So I have to communicate with them. I set them up on showing time, put them all on showing time. I don't give them the ability to say no. I just let them know what's happening. 24-hour notice, this is what's happening. So I try to do the open house. If we don't sell it by then, this is how I set up my process. Okay. Analyzing properties. After repair value is a big one they want to know. People calculate the ARV. What are the current market rents? What's your return on value? What's your return on investment? These are things as an investment realtor that people want you to know about. So they can dig deeper into this later. And how to write an offer that wins. I think maybe if anybody's up for it, I'll teach that class too because that's kind of up on them. Okay. So you also want to find investor-friendly lenders. Does anybody know good lenders here who are investor-friendly? It's a little bit different. Loans, DSCR loans. There's just a different structure for LLCs and for getting mortgages for those properties. And they're used to it. You want to find those lenders and make sure you have them. So I do something. I created this course, right? And in the course, I actually shot a video of myself walking through a property. Because there's certain things that I do when I walk through a property, and I call it the walkthrough of wealth. Because I'll walk up, and the first thing I do is, we're standing in the street. We're looking at the roof. We're looking at the windows. We're looking at the chimney. We're looking at everything on the exterior. I'm looking at the foundation, right? We're going to do a quick walk around the property, and then we go in. Counting windows, how many windows need to be replaced. If you're on the East Coast, up north, you've got basements. We walk straight through that kitchen and right into the basement. All the bodies are buried in the basement. I can tell you exactly what's going to happen in this house and how much money we're going to spend in that basement. Then I walk up to the kitchen and then the next floors. I can do this in 10 minutes. And the whole time I'm saying to my investor, did you write that down? Did you write that down? Because there's a difference between capital expenditures and maintenance costs. Anybody know?
difference between maintenance costs and
Capital expenditures. So capital expenditures are the big things. Roofs, right? That's a capital expenditure. So your accountant needs to know these things. If your accountant doesn't know these terms, get a different accountant. Capital expenditures, maintenance costs. So when you go through and you say to them, that's a CapEx, that means that they're going to have to put it into their budget. Like you're going to have to put and replace that roof in 3 years. You can also only write off capital expenditures over 27 and a half years, depending on what kind of property it is. It's a different number for commercial. If it's a maintenance cost, you can write it off in year one. How cool is that when you're going through and you're saying, make that a maintenance cost? Because they're driving a lot of money. And so if they have a bunch of write-offs year one that they can use for their maintenance costs, you're going to save them a lot of money. You're going to look like a hero. You're like, don't worry about that right now. When you get in there, start doing those maintenance costs. Get your tenants in there. Fix this, fix this, fix this. Turn those into maintenance costs. Get some cash flow coming in. You have money to pay for it. Plus, you can write it off, right? Love that.
I got a real quick question.
Sure.
You said capital expenditure 27 years.
27, huh?
Is those depreciation?
So depreciation's different. So you're depreciating the asset right? But you also have capital expenditures where you're writing off. So if I buy a roof, now my accountant's going to put that into a category and she's going to write that 27 and a half. She's going to write up that roof that cost me $20,000 over 27 and a half years. So every year it gets marked off. And the money that I owe on taxes goes down that year. So going back to like year 2021 and year 2022, I think I did 1.3 million in gross on all 4 companies that I had running. And my adjusted gross income that year was $172,000 because of all the write-offs. So we just kept driving it down. I needed that $172,000 to get loans because I needed to show some income. So we had to find that balance between what can we write off. In October, November, we start looking at what do I need to do? What do I need to shift? Where do I need to put money? What do I need to buy in order to bring it into where it needs to be, right? It becomes a game. It becomes a game of trying to figure that out. But yes, you also depreciate the asset. Now you can do accelerated depreciation. I have some of my investors, I don't do it, but I have a lot of investors that do accelerated depreciation. They depreciate the entire asset 1 to 3 years. That's a whole different story. That's like, it goes away in a couple of years. So use it now. Use it now. Yeah. But use the that goes away unless it gets renewed. And there's a couple of things, right? Like that have come up 1031 exchanges. That's another way to, so it's basically a 1031 exchange says I sell that property and I have $100,000 in gain, I can take that $100,000 and drive it into another property using a 1031 exchange and not be taxed on it. You don't get taxed into that property. You could do it, so you could roll again. You could roll in the whole amount into forever. That's what I have another investor does. That's all she does is rolls in her 1031s into each property. So there's a couple things that I created to help kind of guide an investor. We created an investment realtor blueprint. What do you want to take them through? How do you create their goals? This is something I created because I was like, how do I bring it together for you guys? Right? Like I just in my head know what to do, but I created a plan to help people kind of go through that. So it's about building a raving fan culture, right? Investors are repeat customers. You want to take some time, know them, know what they're about. You want to set them up with successful referrals for lenders, property managers, contractors. As you grow and learn, you can ask people, hey, do you have a contractor? Hey, do you have an electrician? Hey, do you have a plumber? That's how you grow. I stop every truck that I see in my neighborhood. Hey, what are you guys doing over there? So a plumber, right? And they're like, oh my God, here she comes again. I'm like, can I see what you're doing? And so I could see what they're doing. And I'm like, this guy knows what he's doing, right? So I'm like, can I take down your number? How much are you charging for this job? They always tell me. I don't know why they tell me, but they tell me. So I start making a list of different people in different areas. So if you teach an investor correctly, which we are teaching, right? We're educating. We get educated, they get educated. Their portfolio continues to grow. That woman, Tatiana, that started with her one property, it was a 2-unit she bought in Bethlehem. She's been with me for years. She's now buying 10 units. We just made an offer on a 40 unit and a 50 unit.
Wow.
Yeah. That's where she's at. She started with a 2-unit. And she's a physician. She digested the information amazingly well. So stick with investors, grow with them, take some time with them, learn who they are, learn what their goals are, learn what lights them up and where they want to go with all this that they're creating. So building a pipeline, talk to people. Anybody ever go to a RIA meeting, like a meetup?
I went to BP of RIA. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them.
No, tell me about them. I'm always looking for new ones.
Our AIDS associations, Real Estate Investment Association. I took like a quick start of $500, 2 days. It was great. Cool.
Beautiful. Okay, so do you think if you go to a RIA or meetup with investors, what do you think they're looking for?
Realtors.
Realtors, educated realtors, people who have taken this course, who've sat here, who understand the importance and the value of their money and how you can guide them. And if you're just starting, you're just learning too, just keep, like I said, just keep educating yourself and growing. But that's the goal, is having investors for life. So I do have a course that I created. It's called the Investment Realtor Certification Course. It's something that was near and dear to my heart because I was like, how do I take all this information and put it into something? So it's a 12-week course if you take it at its pace, but it's a self-taught course. I also do some coaching on the side, and sometimes I bring in, I was just approached by people who just purchased my course to do some group coaching. But there's downloadable resources, everything that we've been talking about. And it's basically, the first one is module 1, mindset and manifestation. I start here because without my mindset shift, without everything I did, I could not have hit my goal. There's no way. So I always start with a solid mindset, and that work never stops. The second one is the language of investment. So everything we talked about today, I go on a much deeper dive. I go into offers and opportunities, like how can you write the offer that wins? What are the opportunities that you see come out of here? The walkthrough wealth, you actually see me going through the video and going through a property and what I look for and why I look for it. The investment realtor blueprint. So I figure out, like what can I show you guys and what can I create and give you to help you guide an investor and yourself. And really, the most important thing about what I'm talking about here today, did anybody get excited about, I know some of you have investment properties already, get excited about your future and how to have investment properties. That's my biggest goal. As realtors, we're the first look. We get the phone calls. We see things first. There's nothing wrong with us going in there and making that offer right away. I had an investor stand there and talk to me. I was in downtown Allentown, and he goes, yeah, but you buy too. And I said, but here's the thing. How many houses are on this block? How many houses are in this neighborhood? I own one. One. Do you think there's an opportunity for you to own 1 or 2 or 4 or 6? Yes, there's enough for everybody. So we do have raving fans. Tatiana said to me, I wish there was a realtor like you in every single state. That's what she wanted. She said because she now invests across the country. I'm a big 3X and 10X person. So if I can 10X my investment, I would say in 6 months, you can easily 10X your investment. And if it's not here, do it somewhere. That's my biggest thing is I want to make sure that, I'm always available. Like you can see how I kind of started. I started with Pure Light Properties, and I became a realtor. Then I did my course, and then I have some coaching that I do on the side, and just to help people get through. And I had this one woman call me, and she goes, "Will you coach me?" This is one of my first coaching clients, and I was like, "Why?" And she goes, "Because I want to do what you did." I'm like, "What did I do?" She goes, "You went like $1 million in 3 years." I said, "Yes, but I'm crazy. Oh, like I'm insane." And she goes, "But do you have a roadmap?" Yeah, I absolutely have a roadmap. And that's where a lot of this course, it's the roadmap of how I did it through my journey. And so when I add in the accountability piece, because that's all coaching is, right? It's holding somebody accountable. You take a course, you learn something. You've got to have somebody saying, hey, so how you doing with that? What have you done? Have you applied it? Right? And that's all that coaching does. So follow us on social media. It's actually me. Or you can book a 15-minute call with me. I love this. I had a couple people I've been teaching these courses. I actually have a call today from somebody who booked a call with me. You can ask me any question about anything. I don't care what it is. But that's for me the connection that I love. And I want to say, I want to say thank you, because not only am I congratulating you for showing up, because every time you show up for something like this, it just elevates you to a new place. Who you walked into this room today, you are not walking out the same person. I just want you to sit with that for a minute. Because you made this choice today to come into this room and learn some new information, you're walking out as a different person. So I want to celebrate that with you and also say thank you, because every time I teach this, I remind myself of something that I forgot about that I used to do. And I'm like, oh yeah, I have to go back to do that. So that's why we're in circles. That's why we're in masterminds. That's why we have this conversations. That's why we're together, so we can remind ourselves. And now, whatever you learn today, go teach it to somebody else. Because when you teach it to somebody else, you learn it on a much deeper level. So I want you to find one person today, or in the next 2 days, today is better, and teach something back to them. Okay? All right, that's it. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you, guys.